This happened about 2 months ago, and it's already turned into a campfire story among my coworkers. One of them told me to write it down and put it online, so here I am. I'm a 44-year-old guy living in the Pacific Northwest, just outside a small city tucked into the foothills. I work for the municipal water district. My job isn't glamorous. I drive out to storage tanks, old towers, underground cisterns, and check for leaks, damage, or contamination. I take water samples, file reports, and sometimes talk to property owners about plumbing and irrigation. A lot of the tanks out here are ancient, built decades ago and left to rot among the pines. Some are perched on ridges, some buried underground. We jokingly call those subterranean tanks watery graves because of how dangerous they are to work in and because of the weird stuff that turns up in them. Mostly the job is quiet. I see fog settling into valleys, deer stepping out at sunset, sometimes get handed a bottle of homemade wine or smoked salmon by folks who live way out here. But not everything's pretty. I've found needles, bullet casings, once even a pair of bloody underwear out in a field near a tank. You learn quickly that the forest keeps secrets. That night, I got a property access request, one of those last-minute jobs that makes or breaks your weekend. If I handled it right then, I could cut tomorrow's workload in half and start Saturday early. The request was way up in the national forest east of town, past the state park, where the roads turn to narrow dirt lanes and the trees knit overhead so tightly it feels like driving through a tunnel. I should have left it for daylight, but I didn't. By the time I wound my way up the switchbacks, it was after 8. The air smelled like wet cedar. My headlights carved through the dark, catching glimpses of moss-covered trunks and fog curling between them. That's when I saw her. A young woman stood by the side of the road, pressed against the base of a big fir tree. She couldn't have been more than 20. She wore an old-fashioned flannel dress, damp with mist, and held a gray cat cradled in her arms. She wasn't walking. She wasn't lost. She just stood there and stared at me as I drove by, her eyes reflecting white in the beams. I figured she was a local, maybe from one of the old cabins scattered through the woods. A rancher's daughter or someone's girlfriend waiting for a ride. But as soon as my headlights swung away, she was gone, swallowed by the dark. A minute later, I passed a sagging 2-story farmhouse half hidden behind blackberry vines. No lights on, no cars in the drive. I thought, that must be where she lives. I kept going. The access point was further down a rutted track that cut through a field. A pair of water tanks squatted there, ringed by a fence that looked like it hadn't been mended in years. Horses wandered loose among the weeds, their shapes shifting in the high beams. Out here, ranchers usually keep their animals inside at night. Seeing them out like that felt wrong. The whole place carried that abandoned, unlived-in weight, as if no one had cared for it in a long time. I drove on. Then, out of nowhere, 2 figures bolted across the road. A man wearing nothing but underwear and boots. A woman clutching a bundle of sticks tight against her chest. Both of them vanished into the brush without a word. I slowed, rolled down my window just a crack. Somewhere out in the dark, a third voice was crying. Every instinct screamed, "Don't stop." I'd heard about setups like this, meth heads luring drivers out, carjackers using the woods as cover. So I locked my doors, kept my eyes forward, and rolled on. That's when the forest seemed to breathe. Shapes flickered between the trees. More people. Too many people. The road bent, and up ahead I saw it. A big farmhouse squatting on a rise, yellow light leaking from the ground floor windows. I sped toward it, hoping for a driveway wide enough to turn around. But as I got closer, figures began appearing in the beams. Men and women, some half-naked, some bloodied, some laughing hysterically. They staggered out of the trees, out of the fields, across the gravel. And then I saw the hole. Beneath the porch, the foundation gaped wide. A black maw torn outward like something had exploded from underneath. It was large enough to drive a truck into. From that darkness, people crawled, screamed, stumbled, pouring out like ants from a drowned nest. Some clawed at their hair. Some dropped to their knees and wept. One woman simply sat cross-legged in the dirt in front of my truck, praying with a blissful smile. The sounds, Christ, the sounds, wailing that pitched up into laughter, laughter that collapsed into animal-like howls. Somewhere deep in that hole, someone was dying, and it didn't sound human anymore. On the porch, a silhouette stood, a man still as stone. He raised one hand slowly, deliberately, and waved, not frantic, not friendly, just acknowledging me, waiting. For one wild second, I wanted to help. I wanted to climb down into that pit and drag someone out. But some part of me knew that was exactly what the man wanted. Instead, I threw the truck into reverse. Tires spun on the gravel, bodies thumped against the bumper as I backed down the drive. I didn't care. I floored it, fishtailing onto the dirt track, branches scraping both sides as the road closed in like a throat. Figures darted in and out of my lights. Screams chased me. Once, I swear, something pounded the side of the truck with both fists. But I didn't stop. It took me half the time to get back to the highway as it had to climb up there. My brain fed me excuses. Meth lab explosion, cult ritual gone wrong, forest rave turned nightmare. But none of them made sense. And then, just before the turnoff onto asphalt, I saw her again. The girl with the cat, standing in the exact same place as before. Only this time, as my truck roared past, she lifted her hand and waved. I made it back to town shaking. I called 911, told them everything. In the days after, I followed up, but all I ever got was, "We're investigating suspicious activity." Nothing more. I don't take jobs out there anymore. And I sure as hell don't work after dark. There won't be a part 2 to this story, because I'm not stupid enough to go back.